That period of 10 years may seem short for adults, but for me, as a parent, it's been a long journey. My daughter, who was in elementary school, is now old enough to enter society. My husband, who left home on his own and has been living with his parents for 10 years, has abandoned his responsibility as a father. And his mother, who condones this behavior, seems to be interested only in setting up a false joint household. It's too late for him to come crawling back, smelling the sense of money. I've spent 10 years raising my child alone. I haven't wasted my time like you. My name is Kendall. I'm 53 years old and a homemaker working part-time. My daughter Jackie, who commutes from home to university, has recently received a job offer and will start working next year. She's still naive, but I'm happy to see how well she's grown up. The long yet short journey of parenting is coming to an end. There are still education loans to pay off, but for over 20 years, I've lived with my daughter as my top priority. But what should I do now? I want to travel, and taking up a hobby sounds enjoyable. How about finally going to the gym I've always wanted to try? Then, my parents passed away. They were both involved in a car accident, and they passed away together. It was so sudden that I didn't even have time to grieve. I was overwhelmed with funeral arrangements and paperwork. After finishing discussions with the tax accountant, I finally let out my tears when the burden was lifted from my shoulders. Then I remembered, right, I need to contact my husband. I took out my smartphone and made the call. No answer. Yeah, no answer. I know. I had tried calling several times before the funeral, but he didn't pick up. I also sent emails, but there was no reply. Then I got busy and forgot, and it's been over a week since then. It's embarrassing to forget about my husband in this situation. I'm not the kind of wife I want to be. It's been 10 years since my husband stopped coming back. He didn't disappear. He's living with his parents. Since he left home on his own, he's been avoiding me. It's frustrating and an inconvenience since I can't reach him directly. In emergencies, I have to rely on the landline at his parents' house to convey messages. I was at a loss when my husband left. I don't know why he left home. He refused to talk about it. But as a full-time working mother, I soon stopped caring about the reasons. Trying to understand someone who would easily abandon their family without a word seems futile to me. He was always someone who prioritized his own family over mine from the beginning of our marriage. We've had countless fights about it. No matter how many times I explained that we had separate lives from his family, he would break his promises whenever his mother called him. Even if we were ready to go out or had travel plans, it didn't matter to him. Still, I feel like he made efforts to serve my family when my daughter was young. However, when my daughter entered her rebellious phase and my husband started treating us coldly, my mother-in-law suddenly had back pains. It was definitely in winter. It was a snowy year, and both my daughter and I caught a cold.
It must be tough for them, so I'm gonna help out at my parents' house for a while.
I have no idea what use my husband, who couldn't do household chores at all, was to them. My mother-in-law said it was okay for him to stay, saying she didn't mind. My husband is the eldest son and is from the countryside. He grew up in an environment where he was spoiled from a young age. He depends on his doting mother and the comfortable atmosphere of his parents' house. I'm the bride who stole her precious son from my mother-in-law's perspective. Oh, it's just too much to handle. I reluctantly dial the landline. My mother-in-law picks up. Hello, Adele. It's Kendall. Is Huey there? I've tried calling, but he's not picking up. What do you want with him? Please let me talk to him. What do you want? I told you so. It's always like this, with my mother-in-law interfering. I'm disappointed that my husband hasn't come back for so many years. My parents passed away. In this day and age, funerals are kept to a minimum, so I just kept it that way. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I can't believe it. No, I contacted you many times. Don't you have any common sense? What kind of common sense is my mother-in-law talking about? How strange that it was after the funeral was over too. Oh, by the way, have you cleaned out your parents' house? I'm going to gather them with my relatives this weekend. Then she thinks for a moment and says, Oh, that big house. Well, the property is spacious, so it would take some time. She chuckles ominously. Adele, what's wrong? Oh, I'm sorry. It's nothing. Is that so? Well then, goodbye. I hang up the phone and sigh. Mom, you look really troubled, but are you okay? My daughter Jackie looks at me with concern. You didn't have to let them know, right? But I can't let it go, can I? I don't want to be seen as a wife who lacks common sense. I tell my daughter that, but deep down, I want to rebel. It's almost enough to cut ties, but for my daughter, he's her only father. On the weekend, I head to my parents' house with my daughter. My brothers and sisters take the lead, dividing up tasks, and the cleanup begins. Cleaning up a vacant house is typically done with the help of a professional for large furniture and appliances. Then the phone rings. It's from my mother-in-law. It's unusual for her to call me. Maybe she's checking up on us? Hey, is everything going smoothly with the cleanup? My mother-in-law sounds unusually cheerful. Maybe something good happened. Sorry, I can't make it today. I have something urgent to take care of. Huh, were you planning to come? I haven't seen you in 10 years, and you suddenly say something like that? You probably don't even know where my parents' house is, so it's fine. Oh, come on, don't say that. We are family. It's only natural. I wonder what's up with her. My mother-in-law is usually selfish, but this time, she seems to have some sense. I reluctantly accept her sentiment. By the way, about cleaning up your parents' house, yeah, that's right. Sorting through all that stuff must be tough. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, so it's tough. Yeah, it must be tough to have so much stuff. That's right. Clothes, paintings, things that I can't manage properly are troublesome. Really nice. My mother-in-law's thoughts seem seen through, and my emotions fade. I take back what I said earlier. She doesn't make any sense after all. Is that all? Oh, by the way, I just wanted to ask, about your parents. How much did they, leave behind? Huh? It's my turn next, so it's just for reference. It depends on each family. Well, that's true, but tell me, it's not going to diminish, right? My mother-in-law seems to have aged and lost her reserve in the 10 years we haven't seen each other. She's become greedy. The inheritance my parents left, as written in their will, is to be divided equally among me and my 2 siblings. Of course, my mother-in-law has no right to intervene, let alone speak up. I was surprised by her clear words. Indeed, it is that time when my daughter is old enough to enter society. It's a mixed feeling of joy and sadness. Mom, I understand. Promise me one thing, if what I say comes true. What? I made a promise with my daughter. A week later, with most of the cleanup done and thinking about returning to work soon, the home phone rang. Thinking it was a delivery service, I opened the door.
It's been a while.
A grating voice. Oh no, I was supposed to check first. If I had known, I wouldn't have opened the door. Standing there was my mother-in-law and my husband, with his greasy and unkempt body, thinning hair swaying in the breeze, and wearing a loose-neck sweatshirt. What? After staring at my husband's haggard face for a while, I tried to close the door. You've got the wrong house. That's impossible. Kendall, it's been 10 years since you've contacted us or visited. What's going on with the two of you together? Especially my mother-in-law. Why is she so cheerful? My mother-in-law slipped past me and came into the house. Hold on, Adele. My husband followed suit and entered the house on his own. Well, it's his family's house, so it's not like he's intruding. No, he'd been absent for 10 years, so it's practically like strangers entering. Besides, I don't want this dirty man in our house. Kendall, I brought you a gift. I'm sure you'll be thrilled. My husband sat next to my mother-in-law with a cheerful demeanor. Oh, I will have coffee, please.
I will have tea.
Okay, Kendall? Not only my mother-in-law, but my husband's attitude pushed me to my limit. Why should I prepare tea for you when you left on your own, spent 10 years living freely in your parents' house, only sending money for our living expenses and never contacted me? I said, as calmly as I could, although I would have had a million things to say before I did so. What do you need? Why are you acting like that even though we've come all the way here? If you have nothing important to say, please leave. What a disrespectful daughter-in-law! I don't deserve to be told about courtesy by someone who comes here for the first time in 10 years for his own reasons, without contacting me. I don't waver from my indifferent attitude. Then, my daughter came down from the second floor. Jackie, long time no see. Grandma? My daughter said with wide eyes, surprised. My husband seemed equally surprised when he saw her.
Whoa, you've grown, huh?
Who are you? It seems that she didn't realize that the man next to my mother-in-law was her father. It's understandable. The last time they met was when she was in elementary school.
Who? It's your dad.
Huh?
It's me, your father.
I feel the same way. I mean, having that pudgy, balding stranger in front of you claiming to be your dad, you probably want to reject it, right? He's just a stranger to you.
Jackie, come sit here.
My husband says authoritatively, trying to seat our daughter next to him. But our daughter backs away with a disgusted look in her eyes. No, absolutely not.
Huh?
And besides, I have a condition where I get seizures if I'm not standing here, so don't mind me. It's pitiful how my daughter suddenly developed such an illness. I want you to see this. My mother-in-law took out the contents of the envelope she brought and spread them out on the table. It was a set of architectural plans with the name of a famous housing company. The floor plan has enough rooms for 4 households with a completely rooftop garden and an image of palace-like exterior. It's like a company pamphlet is also included. What's all this about? I had an ideal home designed for you. Isn't it wonderful? My mother-in-law sought approval, but I didn't know how to respond. You can do whatever you want with the kitchen and bathroom, Kendall. Huh? Oh, don't hesitate. The people who use it have the right to decide. The people who use it? I realize that our families should live together when the money comes in. So everything is working out just fine, huh? Well, I don't know the details. But how does this concern me? We are family, aren't we? What's ours is everyone's. I can't see where this is going, but my mother-in-law seems to be going overboard. I asked my husband with a hopeful voice, "What do you think?" Without answering my question, the two of them nodded in agreement. Then my mother-in-law whispered something to my husband from behind.
I think it's time to go back.
I didn't understand what was going on, but he said something strange.
Right. So we will use the 30 million inheritance to build a new home, so we can live with my parents.
My mother-in-law nodded in satisfaction. See? Isn't it wonderful? Upon hearing this, my daughter suddenly exclaimed with excitement, "See, Mom? My idea worked, didn't it?" All I could do was laugh. Indeed, that's amazing. I burst into laughter when we looked at each other's faces. My mother-in-law and husband were delighted to see this. I'm glad you two agree.
It's true. The groundbreaking date has already been set. All that left is to make the down payment.
My daughter, smiling triumphantly, told both of them. No, you're both wrong.
Huh?
Live together? I won't be taking care of the two of you, who have been a burden on Mom for years.
Huh?
Oh, Mom, since I was right, please keep your promise. All right, I understand. My mother-in-law asked my daughter with a puzzled expression. I don't get it. What promise? Because you can't distinguish between what's yours and what's not yours, Grandma. I made a promise, thinking you would want Mom's inheritance. If you are a person who can distinguish that, you would have said something to Dad, right? Like, go back to your own home. After all, you just said families should live together. Grandma, you can't tell whose house is whose. My husband spoke up.
Originally, you guys kicked me out of this house, didn't you?
My daughter and I exchanged looks. I had no recollection of it at all. If you had apologized, I would have forgiven you right away. I was just waiting for one word. What are you guys waiting for?
It was you who told me to leave.
But no matter how much I think back, that couldn't have happened. There's no way I would have told my husband to leave.
Could it be that you forgot? In the snow, when I came back from work, you told me to leave.
I remember that snowy day. You, on that day, when both Jackie and I were sick in bed with a cold, you came back empty-handed and asked what you were going to eat. So I told you to go eat outside. To hold on to such a thing for 10 years, I've lost all my strength.
Is that so?
Yes, it is.
Well, no wonder it didn't make sense. After that, why did you leave me alone? The responsibility lies with you.
I tried to contact you so many times, both you and your mom. My mother-in-law looks uncomfortable. I could see she felt somewhat guilty for not letting her son keep in touch with us. Well, if you apologize, she will forgive you. So we can start over. Let's all live together happily. Upon hearing this, my daughter laughed again. Grandma, you don't know, but we've been preparing the divorce papers for 5 years. Huh? What? Our promise was to submit these divorce papers. I was told that if my mother-in-law showed any interest in the inheritance, it would mean more trouble, so I needed to be determined. and my daughter encouraged me to live my own life. It felt like a burden had been lifted off my shoulders.
You're joking, right? You can't just submit divorce papers on your own.
If you'd refused contact and lived separately for 10 years, it would be recognized as a valid reason for divorce.
What?
You didn't know?
I've been paying child support regularly, and I've fulfilled my duties as a father. I may not have been able to afford much, but I believe that with money, children can grow up.
So you were thinking that money is enough to raise a child? A father who abandons his family for 10 years cannot fulfill his duties.
Children are raised by their mothers anyway, right?
Talking to this man is a waste of time. There's no need to understand each other now. That's right. I raised our child all by myself. I didn't need you as a father, to be honest. I was working, attending school events, dropping off and picking her up, and making lunches. Looking back, I was really busy. When I was sick, you, who was supposed to depend on, was absent. Even now, you're not needed.
What do you mean?
Let's end this and file for divorce.
Oh, you're lying. What are you going to do?
Kendall, please. If I keep getting older like this, what should I do about myself and Huey? My mother-in-law begged with a pale face. So are my daughter and I part of your household? Are we your caretakers? Oh no, that's not it. I mean, what about the 30 million inheritance? What are you going to do with that? Come to think of it, where did you hear about this 30 million? If it were divided among you and your siblings, it would mean there was 90 million in inheritance. What kind of conglomerate are we talking about? There's no way there's that much. My parents' house may look big and impressive, but it's just old and worthless. They spent money freely because they had many hobbies, so they didn't leave much cash behind. Did you mishear about the 30 million being divided into thirds? Ah, even if there were, we wouldn't build a house to live together with you. It's not going to happen. My mother-in-law and husband had tears in their eyes.
Are you going to abandon me like this, your husband?
Even if a man in his 50s cries, saying he's been treated unfairly, it doesn't move me. You can continue to live freely in your beloved hometown, as you have always done. Goodbye. About 3 months have passed since then. My ex-husband's relentless attempts to reconcile are bordering on stalking. I don't read the long, relentless emails he sends me more than 20 times a day. I'm considering legal action if you continue to ignore my warnings and persist in bothering me. I'm saving these threatening emails just in case they become evidence. I told him, and being a coward, he immediately stopped bothering me. The divorce papers were finally filled out and accepted. In my opinion, my ex-husband and my mother-in-law lack imagination. They can't imagine other people's feelings or their own future, so they live selfishly. In the first place, relying on someone else to take care of you is too naive. Even my daughter wants to be independent, so they're really pathetic. Speaking of which, once my daughter gets a job, she plans to move out and live on her own. It may be sad and worrying, but it will surely be a good experience for her. Money, time, and the value of family are things you won't understand until you experience not having them close by. I don't intend to make it difficult for her, but I'm ready to help her as much as I can. I, on the other hand, was promoted by the company I work for part-time to become a full-time employee. Now that the child rearing is settled and the divorce is finalized, it's a relief to be able to work full-time. I'm studying to get certified because I was encouraged to become a full-time employee. I feel like starting anew My daughter encouraged me, saying, "Congratulations, Mom. You're going to be a top-notch career woman." I take those words to heart and find hope in the future. Although time may pass the same for everyone, how we spend the past 10 years varies from person to person. There will be enjoyable moments as well as unexpected challenges. Some answers may come with age. I'm going to live my life freely, just as my daughter wishes. You should do the same.
My husband calls during my mother's funeral, demanding I join a family gathering. In my funeral attire, I rush over and drama unfolds.
Hey, what the heck are you doing? It's a family gathering and you're skipping out. Why is my husband so selfish? What are you talking about? I'm in the middle of a funeral right now. Besides, you should be here instead. What are you doing at a family gathering? Shut up. This is more important. I don't care if it's your parents' funeral or not. Get over here right now. I've had enough. I decided to punish my husband. Understood? I'm gonna hang you up by the neck. Wait for it. My name is Cassidy, and I'm a 34-year-old office worker. I've been married to Alexander for 5 years. Our meeting was at a mixer. Cassidy, I fell for you at first sight. Huh? I was surprised when he said that out of the blue, but I was happy. He's the type of person who expresses his feelings so straightforwardly, something I've never experienced before. Because of that, I became interested in him. We talked a lot at the mixer, exchanged contact information, and then he started messaging me every day and we began going on dates. He always tried to make me happy, and it was adorable. I gradually fell in love with him, and when he confessed his feelings for me, I agreed to go out with him. We continued our relationship steadily. Around 1.5 years into our relationship, he proposed to me. Ever since the day we first met, Cassidy, you've been the only one in my heart. I want you to marry me and be by my side forever. With those words, he handed me the ring. I was so happy. I felt confident about marrying him. So I accepted his proposal. Then, we immediately went to meet each other's parents. Seeing him, a full-time employee with a sincere demeanor, my parents were reassured. Alexander, please take care of my daughter. Yes, I'll make sure she's always happy. His reassuring words made me feel like I made the right decision to marry him. Next, we went to meet his parents. But it didn't feel as friendly as when I greeted my parents. You're Cassidy? I thought a more beautiful person would come. Huh? Even though it was our first meeting, my mother-in-law suddenly said that. I was so shocked that I froze. Hey, why are you saying such rude things? I'm sorry, Cassidy. No. My father-in-law apologized and scolded my mother-in-law, so she quieted down for the moment, but I suddenly became really uncomfortable around her. And then my father-in-law started asking me questions, but my mother-in-law just stared at me in silence the whole time. After the introductions, I asked Alexander, "Do you think your mother dislikes me?" Huh? That's just your imagination, right? My mom is kind and wonderful. She doesn't dislike anyone. Is that really true? Even though I couldn't imagine someone like the person Alexander described saying such things at a first meeting, I couldn't shake off my uneasiness. But because I loved him, I didn't consider canceling the marriage. After successfully completing the formalities of meeting both families, we had our wedding ceremony and became husband and wife. This is how our marriage began. At first, I was enjoying myself and feeling the happiest because I was a newlywed. But there were issues right from the start. That was because my husband hardly did any housework. We both worked, and our work hours were almost the same. Despite this, my husband didn't help with preparing dinner, and he didn't do any laundry or cleaning on his days off. Since the burden fell mostly on me, I voiced my complaints. Hey, can't you help out a bit with the housework? When I said that, my husband replied with this. Huh? Isn't housework the wife's duty? Why should I have to do it? Huh? No, since we both work, shouldn't we share the housework equally? It's been established for a long time that wives take care of the housework. My mom did all the housework perfectly without a single complaint, and it was amazing. You should learn from my mom. Or maybe she can give you some pointers? I think she'd be happy to help. No, forget it. I get it now. I was stupid to expect anything from you. Huh? Who do you think you're talking to like that? You can't even earn as much as me, yet you act like you're on the same level. Seems like I stepped on a landmine with my husband as he started blaming me like a storm. And then a few days later, he called my mother-in-law without asking me. Alexander asked for my help, so I came. Be grateful. Saying that, my mother-in-law started complaining about my housework. You're completely useless. Haven't you lived alone before? Or did your mother do everything for you? Your cooking is awful too. Mine is thousands of times better. My mother-in-law kept berating me, and my husband agreed with her. That's right. And yet you have the nerve to complain all the time. Oh my, not just your appearance, but your personality is terrible too? Marrying someone like you was a mistake. Well, yeah, but if you think about it as an investment, it's not so bad. Being married improves your standing with your boss and makes it easier to get promoted. I see. You're really smart, as expected. My mother-in-law and husband had such a conversation in front of me. After that, whenever we met, whether at my in-laws' place or elsewhere, they both attacked me. With my husband, it felt like belittling me was the default setting. I was filled with anger, but if I got angry here, I just lowered myself to their level. So I gritted my teeth and endured it. But I wasn't just going to take it lying down. I prepared for a time like this. And so I immersed myself in my work, determined not to be outdone by my husband. Thanks to that, I was able to produce results and get promoted. But I kept working hard, never letting my guard down. Even though my relationship with my husband wasn't great, I preferred focusing on work rather than dealing with the hassle of divorce. But amidst all this, something unexpected happened recently. My mother fell seriously ill. I rushed to the hospital, but my mother's condition required her to be hospitalized. After that, I was very busy. I went to work, visited my mother in between, and took care of the housework at home. Even during this time, being ridiculed by my husband was a given, and the stress was unbearable. But I decided to focus on visiting my mother and work, because if I started a fight, my husband would become even more troublesome. Then, about 6 months later, my mother's condition worsened, and she passed away. Both my father and I were devastated, and we couldn't stop crying. But we couldn't just cry all the time. We immediately started making arrangements and preparations for the funeral. In between, I informed my husband and in-laws about my mother's passing and the funeral. I told him through both text messages and phone calls, but both my husband and mother-in-law reacted poorly. I decided to focus on the funeral preparations since I had already informed them properly. I tried not to let it bother me too much. But on the day of the funeral, only my father-in-law showed up. Just you, Dad? Oh, yeah. He said he'd come later because he needed more time to prepare. Sorry for being late. No, it's okay. But your wife hasn't come either. And I haven't been able to reach her at all. What? That's just typical of her. My father-in-law was utterly shocked. I honestly told him that I didn't expect anything from my husband and my mother-in-law. And I also mentioned how I had been mistreated by them until now. I never imagined such a thing. I'm truly sorry I didn't notice. I felt there was something prickly about the way my wife treated you, but I didn't think it was this bad. My father-in-law lowered his head to apologize, but the fault lay with those two. Actually, I was glad my father-in-law came to my mother's funeral. When the time for the funeral came, we focused on it and bid farewell to my mother properly. Once the funeral had settled down, my husband suddenly called. Did he finally notice my messages and missed calls? Despite thinking it was too late, I answered the phone. Hello? Suddenly, I could hear my husband's voice. Hey, what are you doing? Huh? It's a family gathering and you're skipping out. A family gathering? Yeah, hurry up and come here, idiot. Why is my husband so selfish? What are you talking about? I'm in the middle of a funeral right now. And shouldn't you be here instead? Why are you even going to a family gathering? Shut up. This is more important, obviously. I don't care if it's your parents' funeral or not. Get over here right now. I've had enough. I decided to punish my husband. Understood. I'm gonna hang you up by the neck. Wait for it. Luckily, the ceremony was almost over, so I informed my father that I would be leaving for a moment. I didn't want to leave during my mother's funeral, but I needed to say something, or it wouldn't sit right with me. Dad, I'll be right back. Don't worry, I'll be back soon. When I said that, my father seemed a bit surprised, but nodded as if he understood everything. Oh, take care. I can't go, but be strong. Yeah, leave it to me. My father must also be angry with my husband and mother-in-law. I geared myself up to give those two a piece of my mind for my father's sake. Why does my husband prioritize his relatives' gatherings over my mother's funeral? I was thoroughly disgusted by my husband's selfish mindset. It's probably best not to regard my husband with normal sensibilities anymore. Thinking of him as a monster or something might be better. My father-in-law, who had attended my mother's funeral, heard my story, lowered his head, and apologized. I am truly sorry for my foolish son. Let me go with you. It's reassuring that my father-in-law will accompany me. I hurriedly got into the car and headed to my husband's location with my father-in-law. This time, my mother-in-law's sister's house served as the venue for the relatives' gathering. A few minutes later, we arrived at the house. When I pressed the door, my aunt-in-law welcomed us. Hi, welcome. Huh? Why are you dressed like that? My aunt-in-law was surprised, but my father-in-law said, I'm sorry, we'll explain later. And we headed inside to where the gathering was being held. As soon as my husband spotted me, he shouted at me. Hey, you're late. I told you to come quickly. Why are you late? His face was red, perhaps from being drunk. Because of that, although everyone around us noticed our attire, my husband seemed unaware. About that outfit? As the relatives started murmuring, my husband finally noticed. My mother-in-law also realized our attire and turned pale. Hey, why are you dressed like that? Although my husband shouted like that, I calmly replied, Why? Because we were in the middle of the funeral and you called us up, of course. It's my mother's important funeral, and yet you didn't listen when I said to hurry up and come. So why are you so angry when I came here in a hurry? Well, normally you change after a funeral, right? My husband panicked and inadvertently said that. This essentially meant that my husband admitted to knowing we were attending a funeral and called us over. What do you mean? You mean you came here instead of attending your wife's mother's funeral? That's unbelievable, isn't it? The relatives began to murmur, feeling awkward about my husband and mother-in-law's actions. Realizing it was a precarious situation, he scrambled to explain themselves. Oh, I didn't know there was a funeral. Yes, me neither. Cassidy, you should have told us earlier. What are you talking about? When Alexander mentioned earlier that you'd normally change your clothes after a funeral, it implied that he already knew I was at the funeral, right? Plus, I have tangible evidence. You replied to my text messages. I showed them my phone screen. When I informed my mother-in-law about my mother's passing and asked her to attend the funeral, she replied questioning why she should attend a stranger's funeral. The relatives were shocked when they saw the screen. What are you showing them? Yeah, don't show such private stuff to everyone. Oh, but didn't you say awful things to me earlier? I then played the audio of the conversation I had with my husband a while ago for the relatives to hear. When they heard my husband yelling that he didn't care about my mother's funeral, the relatives were shocked. Hey, don't play that! And don't record stuff like that! My husband was quite flustered. If someone told you to come like this, threatening you like so, you'd be scared not knowing what might happen later, right? And you guys immediately try to cover up when you realized your own positions were at risk, didn't you? And what do you mean you didn't know there was a funeral? Did you think I'd just obediently follow without a fuss after you intentionally summoned me without explaining why? My husband and mother-in-law fell silent, unable to say anything. At that moment, my father-in-law spoke up. I never imagined you two would say something like this. And on top of that, not even attending Cassidy's mother's funeral. It's not something a normal, decent person would do, to summon someone who has lost their own mother to attend a family gathering. I'm at the end of my rope too. I've decided to divorce you. Huh? What are you saying? The sudden announcement of divorce by my father-in-law left my mother-in-law in a panic. Why would we divorce? I've had a sense that you've been treating Cassidy poorly all this time. And it's also because of your excessive affection for Alexander that you've been doing things to destroy their marriage. I'm fed up with you. I didn't want to say this in front of your sister, but I can't see myself spending the rest of my life with you. So please, let's get a divorce. What? I don't want a divorce! Please say something to him, big sis! She pleaded with her sister like that. But her sister was on her husband's side. You've always been selfish and self-centered. That's what our late father felt about you the most. When you got married, your husband seemed like such a good person. He was so kind and understanding that both our parents and I prayed you wouldn't abandon him. Looking back, I'm amazed it lasted this long. Maybe it was even too late for him. He deserves to live a free life now. You've reaped what you sowed by living selfishly all this time. I can't believe it. My mother-in-law couldn't find the words to say anything back. I then stood in front of my husband and declared that I, too, was divorcing him. I can't continue with you anymore. Please, let's break up. Huh? Wait a minute. Why are you talking about divorce? It's just because I didn't attend your mother's funeral, right? Our marriage was fine, wasn't it? Just because you didn't attend the funeral? Are you serious? Huh? It seems my husband realized the severity of his words when I pointed it out. Oh no, I didn't mean it like that. What do you mean then? You can't dodge it anymore. I'm fed up with your insensitivity. Honestly, you prioritize your mother over me like a mama's boy, and I can't handle it anymore. Please, let's get divorced. It seems my husband felt embarrassed, being looked at with cold eyes by the relatives. Eventually, he lost his temper. Are you saying you can live without me? You were living off my income. Seriously, are you still saying that? I actually earn more than you. Huh? No way. I was the one making more. Maybe before we got married. But after 5 years, you never got a promotion and your salary kept decreasing. Meanwhile, I got promoted, so now I make about twice as much as you do. I could even show you my pay stub if you want. Huh? My husband was speechless. The relatives looked at him with exasperation. Everyone seems to be on my and my father-in-law's side now. Are we done here? I'm definitely getting a divorce. Anyway, I need to get back to the funeral. Let's discuss the rest later. My husband had already given up and was sulking. Ignoring him, I left the house. Later, I went back to my father's place and brought my belongings from our home. My husband pleaded not to leave at the moment, but my father gave him a stern look, and he fell silent as he watched us move the belongings. And finally, I was able to divorce my husband. I demanded compensation from him for the mental anguish I had suffered. It seems my father-in-law was also able to divorce my mother-in-law and successfully kicked her out of the house. By the way, it seems my mother-in-law ended up moving in with my husband, but it's difficult for them to cover the living expenses for 2 people with my husband's salary while paying rent and compensation. Apparently, my mother-in-law started working for the first time, but being inexperienced in working, she struggles mentally from being scolded by her employer almost every day. Well, it's just the consequences of living selfishly catching up to her. On the other hand, I'm doing well at work and living happily with my father. The sadness of losing my mother hasn't completely faded, but I'm determined to look ahead and find hope for the future. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the channel. Let's meet again in the next video.
At my husband's friend's wedding, he said, "You seem happy. My wife is ugly and doesn't do housework. So I stopped doing housework and..."
My husband and I were invited together to my husband's best friend's wedding, and my husband had drunk a little too much. Then, during the candle service, my husband's best friend approached us and said to us,
Thank you for coming today. We aspire to be as close a couple as you two.
To this, my husband confessed something surprising to his friend.
Ah, with such a beautiful wife, you seem so happy. I envy you. Unlike mine, who is ugly and doesn't do any housework.
Huh? I couldn't help but blurt out. What did this man just say? Ugly? He just throws everything on me while doing nothing himself?
Hey, that's not true, right? Are you drunk?
My husband seems to come to his sense when his best friend interrupted him. He quickly realized the tense atmosphere at the table and quickly followed up.
Haha, just kidding, just kidding. She's a perfect wife. Ha ha ha.
My husband said so in a panic. But on the way home that day, I didn't speak to him. And from the next day, I decided to give up housework as he said. Please see through to the end the outcome that awaits my husband and me. My name is Shirley Norton, and I'm a 28-year-old part-time working housewife. My husband Colton and I belonged to the same university's film club during our college days, and we were good friends. As time passed, I ran into him again while working in the city. From then on, we began going out for meals together. Eventually, our relationship started, and we spent time together peacefully. Colton, who was outgoing and cheerful, seems dazzling to someone quiet like myself. I was a government employee, and Colton worked for a large company, and we often went to the movies since we had the same time off. At times, we also went out together with Hugh, who is Colin's close friend and an acquaintance of mine. Hugh even said,
You two make a great match. I wish I could get a girlfriend soon too.
On our 3rd anniversary, Colin handed me a bouquet of roses.
Shirley, will you marry me? I promise to make you happy.
Thank you, Colin. Let's build a happy family together. Thus, I accepted the proposal, and we prepared to meet each other's parents. Both sets of parents blessed our marriage. Colton's parents were sensible and kind to me, which made me feel relieved. The next month, during the introductions, a surprising revelation unfolded. No way, Mary? Could it have been Kathy? We were in middle school together. It turns out that my mother and Colin's mother were once close classmates. I never imagined something like this would happen. But if it's your son, Kathy, then I feel relieved. When my mother happily mentioned it, my mother-in-law replied, I suppose I may have spoiled him a little too much. Colton, you need to be more responsible. Make Charlie happy.
I understand, Mom.
After that, the mothers enjoyed reminiscing about the old days, while the fathers bonded over drinks, creating a lively and pleasant atmosphere. Later, Colton and I registered our marriage, and our friend Hugh gave a speech at the wedding. With both families getting along well and receiving blessings from everyone around us, I was at my happiest. Afterward, Colton and I rented a house at the midpoint between our workplaces and began living together. It became apparent after living together that Colton had no domestic skills whatsoever. He couldn't cook, operate the washing machine, or vacuum. Moreover, he'd leave clothes lying around and wouldn't even throw garbage in the bin. At first, I thought, I would just teach him from now on. In fact, I tried to teach Colton household chores multiple times. Colton, let me show you how to do the laundry. First, put the clothes in the washing machine and press this button.
I don't get it. Charlie, just do it for me.
Colton would say that jokingly, and then slip away when I tried to teach him. Colton, please put the trash in the bin and take your clothes to the laundry room when you undress. I've told you this many times, haven't I? When I got a bit upset, he would reluctantly comply with a yeah at the moment. But if left alone, everything would return to how it was before. When I came back after half a day, the house was already a mess. Even after repeatedly asking him to help with chores, my husband always avoided it. I've lived alone before, so doing chores for one person wasn't too difficult for me. But living with Colton meant cooking for two, doing laundry, cleaning, making his lunch, and even taking care of his suits and shoes. At first, I tried my best because we were newlyweds, but being burdened with all the household chores for a year, despite both of us working, was really stressful for me.
Hey Charlie, let's go on a date next Sunday. I got tickets for the new movie.
However, Colton casually said such things without even knowing how I feel about it. While he does have some endearing qualities, having to do household chores for both me and him can be quite exhausting. I was racking my brains. At that time, we received an invitation to a wedding. It was from Colton's friend Hugh. The invitation asked us to attend as a couple, and we gladly accepted. 3 months later, Colton and I attended Hugh's wedding. At the table, there were our circle of friends from college, and we had a great time chatting. Hugh's wife, whom he met at work, was beautiful, and Hugh, dressed in a tuxedo, looked very happy. Watching them, I couldn't help but feel happy for them. As the ceremony progressed, it was time for the candle service, and by then, Colton seems to have had a bit too much to drink. When Hugh and his wife came to our table, we each congratulated them.
Thank you for coming today. We also want to be a happy couple like you and Charlie.
When Hugh said that, Colton confessed something surprising.
Man, you're lucky. Having such a beautiful wife who does everything. My wife, on the other hand, is ugly and doesn't do any housework.
Huh? I inadvertently blurted out. What did this man just say? Ugly? He leaves all the housework to me and does nothing himself.
Hey, that's not true, is it? Are you drunk?
With Hugh's interjection, Colton seems to come to his senses. Realizing that the atmosphere at the table had turned icy, he quickly tried to make amends.
Nah, just kidding, just kidding. Shirley is a perfect wife.
Colton hastily said that, but he was met with cold stares from everyone at the table. On the way home that day, I didn't speak to him. The next morning, Colton frowned and said to me,
Shirley, are you mad about yesterday? I got a bit carried away because I was happy.
I glared at him. I heard you loud and clear. An ugly wife who doesn't do any housework, right? Well, as you said, from now on, I won't do your share of the housework.
Huh? Wait. What about my breakfast?
I will only make mine. I won't make her lunch either. I've also avoided washing your laundry, so do it yourself. Well then, I'm off to work.
Shirley.
Leaving the perplexed Colton behind, I went to work. Yet, even while working, my anger toward Colton couldn't be calmed. I needed someone to talk to about this. Thinking so, I contacted my mother saying, "It's sudden, but I'll come back today." When I finished work and went home, my mother had made my favorite dish, sweet and sour pork, waiting for me. "Long time no see, Shirley. Since you've come all this way, take your time." My father also tells me, beer in hand,
Welcome back, Shirley. Come on, join me for a drink.
"Thank you, Mom, Dad." As expected, Mom, your sweet and sour pork is delicious. Having a meal prepared by someone other than myself for the first time in a while, I felt deeply moved. Then my mother called out to me, "So, what's been going on?" As expected of my mother, she sees through everything. While drinking the beer my father gave me, I slowly began to talk. I mentioned things like Colton never doing any housework, and the incident where he said the terrible things at his best friend's wedding.
What did he say? Calling someone's daughter ugly? Especially our lovely Shirley.
Dad, who tends to be a bit overprotective, partly due to being drunk, displayed his anger openly. I was taken aback to the point where even I, the person involved, was stunned. "Dad, please calm down."
How can I calm down about this? Shirley, divorce that man and come back home.
Upon hearing this from my father, I was speechless. "So, what do you want, Shirley?" My mother asked quietly. "I can't forgive what Colton said, but he did apologize, and I do have some hope that he will change." "I see. Yes. Misunderstandings and conflicts are inevitable in marriage. Sometimes being straightforward is necessary. Maybe it's also a wife's job to educate her husband." "That's true. I've decided I'm going to stop doing household chores for a while and see how things go." Though my father muttered that I was still being too lenient, my mother sent me off with a smile. However, when I returned home, I was shocked. The house was in such disarray, it looked like a tornado had swept through.
Shirley, you're back. Thank goodness.
Colton rushes to me in a panic. "What was this mess?"
Well, I couldn't find my pajamas. When I was looking for them, things ended up like this.
"It's not like things just ended up like this. Your pajamas are in the drawer next to where you undressed. You always rely on me to prepare everything, so it ends up like this, right?"
Oh, is that so?
Colton continued with a dejected expression.
So, about my dinner. I didn't eat breakfast, and for lunch, I just had some convenience store bread. So I wanted to have a proper dinner.
"Huh? I already ate at my parents' house. So figure something out for yourself.
Oh, come on. But there's only meat and vegetables in the fridge.
Then make something with that. And since you made a mess in this room, you should clean it up. After that, I truly only did my own share of the housework, leaving Colton alone. As a result, the house became more and more chaotic. The floor was cluttered with his things, and Colton's used dishes were left in the sink. Laundry piled up with only Colton's clothes, and his suits became wrinkled. Since I didn't cook, his skin became increasingly irritated. Living in the chaos and mess of our shared home was stressful for me, but I desperately refrained from doing the housework. Perhaps realizing that I was resolute about not doing the chores, Colton attempted to do them himself. However, things didn't improve overnight, and the chores kept stacking up. 2 weeks after Hugh's wedding, our home was in a state of utter chaos.
Charlie, could you please cut it out? I'm admitting I was wrong, ain't I? Please help with the chores too.
Finally, it seems Colton had reached his limit and begged me. But I ignored it and informed him. My parents are coming over now.
What? What are we going to do? This house is a mess. We can't let people in.
At that moment, the doorbell rang. I ignored Colton's panic and went to the front door to welcome my parents.
Excuse us. What on earth is this? This is terrible. What's going on here?
When my parents appeared, Colton put on a somewhat fake expression.
I'm terribly sorry for the mess, Dad, Mom.
This is not just a mess. What's going on here? Colton spoke with a wondering gaze in response to my mother's words.
This is because Charlie isn't doing the housework.
Oh, I see. But if Charlie isn't doing it, then you, Colton, should do it, right? As my mother said this with her arms crossed, Colton stumbled for words. Seeing this, my father continued.
Colton, we know. Why did Charlie take this action? What you said at the wedding? Huh?
Colton's expression turned pale, as he grew increasingly shocked.
That's not it. I was just drunk and trying to praise my friend. And you called someone's daughter ugly, my little girl?
It seems that my father was indeed fixated on that point. As I watched Colton's rapidly changing expression, I smirked. Then my mother spoke up. Calling her ugly was a terrible insult, but the real issue is what happened afterward. You left all the housework to Charlie and didn't lift a finger, acting all innocent in front of others, didn't you?
Oh, Mom.
I also got angry after talking to Charlie, so I called them.
Huh?
My mom used her phone for a minute. To my surprise, it was my in-laws who came in.
Dad, Mom, why?
More surprised than Colton. My in-laws were shocked by the state of the house. We've heard everything from Charlie. What do you think you're doing? Glared at by both my parents and my in-laws, Colton shrunk. And then he finally said to me,
Hey, calling both sets of parents was too much. I'm really sorry.
Sorry, huh? Then why haven't you done any housework properly for the past 2 weeks? I said, folding my arms, and Colton flinched. So apologize.
Please forgive me. I will do my best to help with the household from now on.
I'm considering divorce. When I said this firmly, Colton widened his eyes.
Divorce? That's too much.
Too much, you say? Even though we both work, why should I be responsible for all the household chores? And on top of that, being humiliated in front of everyone. It's no wonder I feel like ending things, right?
No, I love you, Charlie. I don't want a divorce. I'm sorry.
In front of both families, Colton finally broke down. Will he change after facing this reality? But I still can't trust him completely. As I hesitated, my mother-in-law spoke up. Charlie, and your parents, I'm truly sorry for what happened this time. It's our fault. No, Mom and Dad, you're not to blame at all. No, it's because we allowed this child to live with us and took care of everything at home. We spoiled him too much. So I have a proposal.
Huh?
We'll take Colton in for 2 months and teach him household chores thoroughly. And if he doesn't change, how about really considering divorce? Mom. Then Colton shouted loudly,
I don't want to be away from Charlie.
So I calmly responded, Your offer is appreciated, Mom. Let Colton be trained by you guys. I'm looking forward to it in 2 months.
But
my in-laws repeatedly apologized to my parents and me, then dragged Colton away as they left. I felt a pat on my shoulder from my parents and heard them say, You've worked hard. About 2 months later, Colton returned home. What surprised me was that he seemed like a completely different person, able to do household chores. It seemed he was trained very strictly by my in-laws. While Colton was preparing a meal, he said to me,
Sorry, Charlie. I underestimated household chores. It was messed up to leave everything to you.
Do you really understand now, Colton?
Being taught by my parents and trying it out myself, I finally realized that household chores are tough and complex. I promise to do it properly from now on. So would you give me another chance?
I smiled and replied, I won't forget those words. Good luck, Daddy.
Huh?
Yes. Actually, right after Colton returned to his parents' house, I found out that I was pregnant. When I showed him the ultrasound, Colton's eyes welled up with tears of joy, and he hugged me tightly. Later, I gave birth safely. Both sets of parents were delighted and lovingly embraced their grandchild. Since then, Colton has been faithfully supporting me through the challenges of pregnancy and childbirth. I was grateful for that and decided to completely let go of what happened at Hugh's wedding. Now Colton willingly prepares baby food. In our tidy home, we work together to raise our child. I want to keep expressing gratitude to our parents and nurture our warm home with my beloved husband and child.
I walked into my husband kissing his childhood friend at our wedding. Right afterward, they end up shaking and sweating in fear.
On the day of the wedding, instead of me, the bride, kissing my husband in a pure white dress was his childhood friend, Samantha. Oh, come on, just got carried away, haha.
Yeah, just for fun, you know. Ha ha ha.
Alright then. Well, let's make it a memorable wedding then. This is a story of when I pulled off a surprise for my husband and his childhood friend at our wedding. My name is Jessica. I'm in my 30s, working for a film company. I got married 3 years ago, and now I'm a wife juggling work and chores. I met my husband Ryan through work. I was at a year-end party with some clients and ended up alone in a corner, sipping a drink when he approached me. We hit it off talking about our shared love for camping, and soon enough, we were going out to eat together regularly. It didn't take long for us to start dating. Then on a camping date, he proposed to me under the starry sky, saying, "Let's get married." It was like something out of a fairy tale. Of course, I happily said yes, and we started preparing for the wedding, meeting each other's family and all. But then, the pandemic hit, and our plans for a grand wedding were dashed. so we just had a simple civil ceremony to tie the knot for the time being. With the remote work under the restrictions, we ended up spending most of our newlywed life at home. Being newlyweds and working from home might sound fun, but Ryan was a bit different. He preferred being active, so stress started piling up on him. His smile faded, and he got irritable even when he wasn't overwhelmed with the job. Gradually, he started drinking more. I thought it wasn't good for his health, so I suggested, "Hey, how about we go camping for a change? It might be a breath of fresh air, and there won't be many people around."
Yeah, maybe. But if we are going, I want it to be lively. Don't think it's appropriate to invite my coworkers. Oh, right. Can I ask my childhood friend? We used to go camping together a lot. Oh, and don't worry. We'll set up our tent far away.
I thought it would be some guy friend he's close with, so I agreed right away. When we got to the campsite, I was stunned. Wait, your friend is a woman?
Yeah, this is my childhood friend Samantha. We grew up on the same street and were like siblings. She's always loved camping too.
Nice meeting you. We've been friends for ages. Thanks for inviting me today. Her casual demeanor when interacting with Ryan hinted at how close they were. Sure, I'm Jessica, by the way. Nice to meet you too. I was a bit taken aback that his close friend was a woman, but I shrugged it off. We set up our tents apart from each other and kept our distance during meals. Even though she said she liked camping, she couldn't set up her tent alone, so Ryan had to help her. I tried not to let it bother me, but every time I heard her voice, it irked me a bit. Wow, you've always been good with your hands. Her tone just sounded a little too flirtatious. Well, I didn't have any opposite-sex childhood friends, so I couldn't really relate. I told myself that if you'd been close since you were kids, it was normal to be like that. That was just the start, as she started coming along on every camping trip. Sometimes we'd drink at night, and there were moments when she'd lean on Ryan casually. At those times, he would say,
You've had enough. Go back to your tent.
So I figured they were just really good friends. Fast forward 2 years into our marriage, and the pandemic was finally over. Work was back to normal, and both Ryan and I could commute like usual. With more opportunities to dine out, he started going for drinks with his colleagues after work more often. Eventually, we decided to finally have the wedding we had planned before. Even though it's been 2 years of marriage already, I thought it'd still be nice for our parents to see us happy, and everyone was pushing for it to be a memorable event. So we started preparing for it all over again. It was tough though. There were so many decisions to make about the date, venue, dress, menu, guest list, you name it. Weekends became all about preparations. But Ryan was busy with work, often coming home late, and even working on weekends. That left me to handle everything on my own.
Weddings are more for the bride, right? So do whatever you want.
But there will be guests from your side too, right? I need your help with this.
Nah, seriously. Do whatever you want, please.
And just like that, he'd pass all the responsibility to me. But then, out of the blue, he remembered.
Oh yeah, make sure to invite Samantha.
I mean, don't people have friends other than childhood pals? Why just her? That got me feeling uneasy. Okay, sure. But don't you have other friends too? Why the insistence of inviting just her?
Well, she's been nagging me about it.
I wondered when they even talked about it. I decided to dig a bit deeper. Wait, have you been seeing her recently?
Huh? No, not at all. Wonder what she's up to.
That answer just made me even more suspicious. Call it a woman's intuition, but something felt off. On the next weekend, he mentioned he'd be working again. I decided to investigate a little. I desperately hoped my gut feeling was wrong. On the weekend, I asked him, "Hey, I'm heading to the venue today. Might be back around evening. Do you think you can join me there later?"
I have a project deadline this month, so I might be late again. Sorry to make you deal with it alone, but I know you always make the right decisions.
And there he went, passing the buck again. He was going to throw all the responsibility to me. I was going to do whatever pleased me. I headed out ahead of him and kept an eye on the entrance from outside the apartment. Then I saw a familiar woman entering the building. It was Samantha. The way she disappeared inside flawlessly, it didn't seem like her first time. If my gut feeling was wrong, I would have just gone to the venue as planned. But I couldn't leave after seeing what I did. So I called the venue saying I couldn't make it and went to a cafe where I could see the entrance of the building. 3 hours later, they came out arm in arm. Guess it's what I suspected. Despite the shock, I somehow managed to follow them. They went into a restaurant and sat near the window. As I watched them, they seemed pretty chummy, holding hands on the table and all. I couldn't take it anymore, so I went inside and stood in front of them. "Hey, what are you guys doing together? You're supposed to be at work, right?" I asked nonchalantly. Ryan quickly let go of her hand and said,
"Oh, just happened to wrap up work early. Took a break and bumped into her. So we decided to grab a bite."
"Oh, really? Long time no see, Samantha. What brings you to this neck of town today?" "Was just shopping when I bumped into him. Figured I'd let him treat me to something nice, you know."
"What about you? Weren't you supposed to be at the venue for a meeting?"
"Yeah, I felt tired, so I thought I'd head home early. Since you said you'd be late, I thought I'd grab dinner alone, but joining you is fine, right?" Even though he said of course, I didn't miss the discontent on Samantha's face. Despite all the suspicion, I had no evidence. When I got home and checked the room, I couldn't find anything incriminating, so I couldn't really pursue it any further. I wondered when it all started. Being childhood friends, they must have been close even before I came into the picture. After some thought, I decided to reach out to Nancy, one of Ryan's friends from college. She was in the same camping club as Ryan back then. When we went camping in a group at the beginning of our relationship, he invited her, thinking I'd enjoy myself more with another woman around. We hit it off from the start and kept in touch occasionally. I invited her to have a drink together before the wedding. It was a bit hard to bring the subject up, but she noticed something was off with my expression. "What's wrong? Got the pre-wedding anxiety?" I took the opportunity and asked straight up. "Yeah, there's something bothering me. Have you ever heard about Ryan's childhood friend? Her name is Samantha." "Oh yeah, I know her. Even though we went to different universities, she joined our club activities. Nothing wrong about joining us, but whenever she was there, things got awkward." "Oh, what happened?" Like she was obsessive, you know. She'd interrupt whenever another girl tried to talk to Ryan. Even though they were together, everyone felt like it was too much." "Wait, she was his girlfriend?" "Yes, she was." "Wait, you didn't know?" "They've been together since high school. She used to come to the college all the time,
and was always glued to him.
What a turn of events. She wasn't just a childhood friend, but his ex-girlfriend. I told what I saw to her.
Geez, that's pretty obvious.
You think so too?
Yeah, but your wedding's coming up soon, right? What are you gonna do?
For now, I gotta gather evidence, whether it's to break them up or divorce. Brian had been passing the buck to me and enjoying himself with another woman. The fact that he was fooling me and making me handle the wedding preparations meant he wasn't planning to leave me. Heck, it wasn't more like he was planning to keep us both. I was absolutely not okay with that. I had to get some evidence, no matter what. Hey Nancy, mind tagging along for some shopping? We headed to the mall to buy something specific. Fast forward a few months. I was still being left to handle the wedding preparations. Brian probably never thought I had suspected anything. He said he was busy with work, pulled overtime on weekends, and often came home late on weekdays too. I acted like I didn't notice anything during that time. And then, the long-awaited wedding day arrived. I slipped into the pure white dress I picked out all by myself. Since Ryan said I could choose as I wanted, I went for the top-notch dress. As I put on my accessories and grabbed the handkerchief, I realized I had his. So I headed to his dressing room to give it to him. When I opened the door, there she was, in a white dress, sitting on his lap, kissing his cheek while they took pictures. What the heck? I blurted out in shock. What the heck are you doing, Samantha? And you too. Ryan tried to explain.
No, it's not what you think. She's just a bit drunk.
Samantha seems to have drinking and giggled, saying, Oh, come on, just got carried away, ha ha ha. Ryan chirped in.
Yeah, just for fun, you know, ha ha.
Oh, I see. I felt my heart going cold in an instant. If that was how they wanted to play, I had no more hesitation. Any lingering doubt I had vanished in the instant. I was going to end our rotten relationship with my own hands. After all the preparations I had made, I was determined to make it a memorable wedding. And finally, the wedding ceremony began. Ryan and Samantha were sitting there, acting like nothing was wrong. But with her in a pure white dress among the guests, everyone was giving her scowls. They probably thought she was some clueless girl with no manners. But they were about to find out just how bad their manners really were. The ceremony finished without a hitch, and the reception progressed smoothly into the middle. Suddenly, the hall went dark, and a voice announced, Now, a surprise from the bride Jessica. A big monitor screen popped up, showing the title, The Miracle of Two. I turned to Ryan and Samantha smiling, and said, Here's my gift to you. Do you know what I do for a living? See, I was a video editor. Editing footage was my thing. The clueless Ryan was all excited, asking,
What is it?
What appeared on the screen was footage of him and Samantha fooling around at our house. Yeah, it was a miracle of those two.
What's going on?
The hall started buzzing. The screen showed Ryan and Samantha sitting on a bed, holding hands and chatting. Hey, aren't you gonna divorce your wife?
It's such a hassle, right? With her around, I don't have to do housework, and I get to play around on my days off. And you've got a boyfriend too, don't you?
I'd rather be with you, you know. But my current boyfriend buys me a lot of stuff. Just the other day, I asked for a designer bag, and he said he would buy it for me. Look, he even got me this bag.
Damn, you making him pamper you, huh?
Making good money is his only good trade. Gotta make the most of it and spend some on me. The buzzing became even louder. Ryan was freaking out, but the footage kept playing. So, where are we going today?
We already tried the new hotel. So how about the one near the station?
Oh, I like that one. They've got lots of room service options. It showed footage from inside her car. They had been using my car. When I found out they'd been using it to go back and forth to the hotel, I was furious. But it was all for the surprise. I had solid evidence from the dashcam footage and audio. They really underestimated me by not deleting it. More and more footage played, and finally, Ryan yelled out,
"What the heck is this? It's all fake! Stop it!"
But then, a couple appeared in front of him with a fierce look on their face. It was his parents. "Ryan, what's all this?"
This must be some kind of mistake. How could you do this while you are married to Jessica?
Then, in another part of the hall, there was another argument going on between a man and a woman. One of them was Samantha. "Stop the film!"
Samantha, explain all that.
The guy arguing with her was her boyfriend, who, it turned out, was one of Ryan's friends and was also invited as a guest. I didn't know about it, but it was a godsend. "This is all lies! Don't believe it!"
That's impossible. Did you choose me just for money? I guess yeah, the bag you asked for last time was a high-end brand too.
"That's not it! Trust me!"
Then give that bag back. The one I bought. You think I would believe you? It's over between us.
With that, he stormed out of the hall. Then Samantha, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment, came over to me. "Hey you! What the heck do you think you're doing? You planned this all along, haven't you?" "Yeah, I was planning to surprise you guys. Did you like it?" "What's with you doing something like this? I got dumped by my boyfriend." "What are you complaining about? You're the one who has been sleeping with my husband, aren't you? The evidence is right here. Weren't you kissing Ryan in the dressing room earlier?" My in-laws, who were nearby, glared at Ryan, their faces beet red.
Ryan, damn you!
Gasp!
She came onto me. I already told her I was married, but she still insisted.
He blamed her to save himself. "What? What the heck are you saying? You were the one saying you preferred me." She fired back.
I never said anything like that. Jessica, please, honey, believe me.
He broke down in tears and sweat, clinging to me. But I had absolutely no intention of believing him. With all this evidence here, it doesn't matter who tempted who. It's clear who crossed the line. I can't trust you anymore. So let's get divorced. I smiled and added, "Oh, and I will be sure to bill you for the wedding expenses and compensation for emotional distress for this incident." I gave them a dramatic turn with my wedding dress and headed back to the dressing room. I felt like wearing a pure white dress would be the first and the last time then. It was quite a disaster of a wedding, but at least I got to wear the top-notch dress. As I looked at myself in the mirror, someone knocked on the door and came in. "Nancy, you freaking did it! You were amazing!" Hearing that, I felt relieved, and tears started flowing without me realizing it. She had been helping me with all the preparations until that day. She gently stroked my back as I cried. Those tears weren't tears of regret. Rather, they were tears of joy from winning. I've got to shame them in front of everyone. I may not have been lucky with my husband, but it seemed I'd been lucky with friends through him. A few days later, I filed for divorce and demanded compensation from Ryan through a lawyer. He was quite shocked by the total cost of the wedding. I had chosen quite expensive items for the dress and wedding favors, as he said I could do whatever I wanted. It was his fault for delegating everything. Rumors spread at his workplace that he was a terrible cheating husband since his co-workers attended the wedding. It became uncomfortable for him to continue working there, and he resigned. As for Samantha, I also demanded compensation for the stolen accessories and jewelries. It turned out she had been stealing from me every time she came over to the apartment. She was jobless living with her parents. Even after she sold all the brand name items her ex bought for her, it didn't reach the amount I charged her. I heard her parents cover the expenses for her and told her to start working and pay them back. Otherwise, they would cut ties with her. She reluctantly started working at some countryside inn, factory, or ranch, living there as part of the job. Well, considering she had never lived alone or worked before, she must have been going through quite a bit of struggle. A few years has passed since then. I had been thinking I was done with marriage until I had this unexpected encounter. It was Nancy's brother. Since the incident, I'd been hanging out more with her as a close friend, going camping together. One time, her brother came along, and the camp food he made was insanely delicious. He was a chef at the restaurant, and coincidentally, it was near my office. I was captivated by his cooking, started frequenting the restaurant, and with Nancy's help, we started dating. Now I'm married to him, enjoying his delicious homemade dishes on weekends.